Lynn, welcome to the Wise podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
I am so glad to be having this conversation, Laura.
Oh, absolutely. And as you know, I'm going to get my hair done for my wedding right after this. And Lynn thinks I'm crazy, the listeners, because we've planned this for ages, haven't we, Lynn?
We have.
It's,
One of us has had to say no at least twice.
we're busy women, you know?
That's
So,
right.
and we want to support each other. And I know you've got some amazing things to share. So let's dig in, shall we? I
Perfect.
thought we would start by your book. Your book is Mastering Inside Sales Leadership. If anyone's watching the video on YouTube, she's holding up the book. Everyone should get a copy, and I will put a link in the article. But I wonder, Lynn, there must have been a reason you went, oh my gosh, I need to publish this book. There must have been something that came up for you. Can you share a bit about that?
Well, I'm going to first say that I've told Colleen Stanley, who has written a couple of books for years, I'm never writing a book. I'm never writing a book. I'm never writing a book. And this ended up happening because someone asked me for a playbook for inside sales leadership, particularly. So that's my area of expertise. And so I just went to look for one because I'm like, oh, there's got to be one out there. And there is one that I found pre-COVID era. So much has changed about how you lead teams since then. I'm like, oh, I think I have to write this. So I did.
Good for you. Was it hard?
It was, I will share that I've been writing for 25 years and I absolutely leveraged telling AI, go find everything I've ever written about vision. And it pulled all my articles from everywhere. So I used it as my research assistant, pulling my own content.
Beautiful.
So that made it much less daunting.
And you had the skeleton in your mind. You knew what was necessary, the knowledge to impart to sales leadership. Because, I mean, we bonded about this when we first spoke. I am a sales leader, and I will put my hand on my heart and say, it's hard. You know, anyone who wants to go into it, it's incredibly rewarding, very fruitful, but it's really, really hard. And actually, before I was doing some preparation for our conversation, and I loved your LinkedIn bio, and I'm just going to read out what it says. It says, pipeline isn't where it needs to be. Goals just feel out of reach. The pressure to figure it sits out with you. As an inside sales leader, you're expected to have the answers. Most days, you're working through challenges without a clear playbook and no one to talk it through with. Very true. Very, very true in my eyes. And it definitely struck a chord when I read that, thinking it is hard. And I think we need to be fair to ourselves, it is. But having books and resources and people like you help us navigate it is exactly what we need. So I guess the question I thought I'd ask you off the back of that is, what are the patterns that you consistently see with sales leaders that maybe are struggling in those areas? And how do you support them through that?
So I think one of the things that, it, you know, there's, I'm going to hold up the book again because there's a puzzle on it, right? Like it's a puzzle piece. And I think what, because sales is part of an organization and inside sales is usually a subset of that, leaders don't think they get to have a vision. And the reason it's a puzzle is because I don't know about you, but if there's not a picture on the outside of the box, it's going to be really hard to put together that puzzle. And I don't think we take the time as like in leadership of sales in particular to create a vision for our team. And if you don't create the vision, if you don't know what you're looking for, then everything just is a tangent off of something else. And there's never a full direction forward. And that's the missing piece in almost every inside sales organization that I work with.
So that's the biggest missing piece. It's so true as well, because you think about any leadership role is to adhere to the company vision and to be promoting the company vision. But actually, you have to have your own and you have to understand how to have your team work towards what yours looks like. I must say, I've got a vision for my team, which I'm happy to share with
Mm-hmm.
you. And my vision is called Dare to be Different. And the reason that I have that vision is because I really wanted to create a team of sellers that were a little bit disruptive, quite bold, but also super creative in the way that we work with our clients. I really didn't want carbon copy, terrible, generic, outbound prospecting to drive meetings. I wanted difference. I want creativity. And I want our clients to be like, wow, I've never worked with sales teams that do it like that. Do you have any other visions that you recall or that you can share that you thought, I like that one,
So,
that one works? Because I have no idea if mine is even good or not. It's just something I came up
but so,
with.
but here's the thing, Lauren, like it's yours, right? And I think that that's the important piece is that, and not only is it a vision for your team, but it's a vision for how you lead the team. And it works inside the construct of the company's vision as well. And I think that's important. Like, because if your vision doesn't even like fit in like a puzzle piece inside the organization, then it's a bad fit for you. And you should find an organization that your vision does fit into the company mission as well. Right. So I I think it's a great mission, a great vision, a great way because everything your team does, you can tie back to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for people listening, if you haven't got a vision now, would you agree, Lynn? It's not too late to formulate
It's
one.
never too. Oh, and how about this? And if you don't like the one you're using, it's not too late to reformulate either, right? Because we as people change over the course of our careers, and what you thought it was whenever you created it may no longer fit for you as a person.
What is your advice to someone who maybe thinks, God, I'd love to have a vision, but I don't really know where to start. I don't know how to create that. What would you tell them?
So, first, people have to realize that that's creative thought, and creative thought takes time. So, it's not like you're going to just write a vision statement in your 3 minutes between meetings. You know, you and I, before we started recording, talked about the fact that most people are back to back to back to back to back, and there's no time for any activity or even going to the bathroom for most people, right? So you will have to carve out time for yourself to work on it, and don't try to sit down and do it. I'm somebody that says, hey, the next time you're walking your dog, start thinking about it. Write down something when you come back in the house. Let it sit for a while. Investigate, like, if there's a word that strikes you, like, okay, what are some quotes around that word that I can look up, right? And, oh, that sounds like me, or this doesn't. Like, oh, maybe that's not the right word. And start to just play with it because, again, it's your vision. So you get to change it whenever and however you need to make it work for you.
Absolutely. The way I looked at it as well was, what did I want my team to look like? And again, it came back to that difference. I don't want to have the same group of sellers. I want, yeah, real unique differentiation. And sometimes they'll send me emails and say, hey, I just want you to check my messaging on this email. What do you think? And I will just turn to them and go, where's the dare to be difference in this? This is the same as what everybody else is selling and sending. Let's try that again. So have a think about your vision and how that, I suppose, ties back into your dynamic coaching. Which leads me on to other questions, because sales leaders, I think so much of your job is about coaching, and being really dynamic with that. I listened to a webinar last week, I think it was, about the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, where I think it's something crazy like 70 to 80% of sales training delivered by sales leadership can be forgotten within a week. You know, that's substantial, but you have to remember the brain only has a capacity to remember certain amounts of information in one go. So you have to constantly refer back to it and apply the things that you're teaching. How do you think, given we're in the world of AI and it's moving fast, but there's so many advantages for sales leadership? Talk to me a bit about how AI is changing the way leaders can coach. Are you seeing it help improve it for them, or is it increasing noise? What does that look like for you?
So I think it is a tool. And if we use it as a tool for something specific, it's super useful. So again, inside sales, huge amount of call review usually involved. I don't know about you, but that's a time consuming thing. Like old school, I need to listen to it 3 times. Like the first time I'm listening to the overall thing. The second time I'm probably listening for something that we've worked on in training. The third time I'm listening to it again with all of that in mind. All right, if that's a 20-minute call, that's an hour. If it's an hour call, that's 3, right? To do one call review. That, you know, and in inside sales from a prospecting perspective, there's 7 or 8 minutes, but that's still a half an hour a call that a leader would spend listening. If instead you have a good defined what expertise sounds like, looks like, and you can have a whole bunch of calls loaded in, AI looks at, okay, what does this look like against a call plan, against expertise, however you define that in your particular organization for a class of calls, right? Like you can't drop meetings in with prospecting calls. That doesn't work, right? So leveraging it, AI as a tool, you then can use that in your coaching. What I see as being lazy is when sales leaders think AI is going to be the best coach for the people on their team. It can coach to something, but it can't coach a person.
Well, I might challenge you on that in the sense that I've seen some platforms lately, I haven't used them myself, but where they do role play. So you can role play with an avatar.
Yeah.
And it could be really good practice for objection handling. So there's a couple of companies out there for the listeners. I was looking at Scoot earlier. There's another one called Hyperbound. I think there's one called maybe Retorio. Don't quote me on those. I can post the links in the summary. But I liked the concept of human training, but practice, because you make a really valid point, Lynn, and I struggle with this all the time. We don't have time to be constantly reviewing, making our notes, training, making sure that they're applying it. It's quite a long-winded thing, but what I've certainly realized as a sales leader, even the best of the best in your team need coaching and training all the time. You know, if you pivot to those, go on, Lynn.
Yeah, but that kind of thing is kind of like running drills if you're on a sports team, right? Like, so they're not. Again, it's leveraging AI for something very specific. Yeah. Like, okay, we're going to use it for, you're going to practice objection handling. Yes, I agree with you. Practicing against an avatar is very useful, especially if the program is taking all of the answers that your team gives. Well, then you can say, okay, the avatar thinks this is what success sounds like, but based on deals that I'm reviewing with people, it's close, but it's not really what I need the team to do. So again, I think there needs to be leader intervention, maybe is the right way, right? Like you need to be always looking to verify. Like it's a woman I know, Sonia Dumas, said, and I quote her all the time, it's assisted intelligence right now, not really artificial intelligence. And that means we have to assist it as well. So it's helping, but.
Yeah, definitely. An example I can give there is we've been experimenting with creating skills and embedding those within Claude. And what I've done with Claude is I've been able to connect that to Fathom, which is my call recording technology. And then that connects with Airtable. And basically, I can jump into a one-to-one with a colleague and ask Claude, based on my skills workflow, how did my colleague do in her calls last week? And what it will do is it will pull out patterns. it will say she did a really good job of the discovery, but maybe the areas she could focus on would be closing. There weren't very clear next steps and actions off the back of that call. And I think you make a valid point there. I always say it's like humans and AI working together, because what AI did very quickly for me was identify those patterns. But then as a leader, I think it's how you deliver those back and how you then work on those. Because if you just send those in an email and go, oh, this is all your feedback from the AI this week, people are going to read it and could just continue doing what they're doing. So I guess the question I have is, what is your recommendation to sales leaders about giving feedback? Because what I'm seeing is AI is giving us more of a feedback loop than maybe we've ever had before. But how do we deliver that in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming to the individual?
So I've always said you can't fix everything at once. And I believe that you as the leader need to pick one thing, right? Big fan of the book Atomic Habits, right? You do one thing and then you build on that thing when it starts to become like, I'm doing this. Okay, what's the next thing I can add to that to make it even better? And, my joke about inside sales is we can measure everything, right? So we do. That doesn't mean any of it's useful, right? A dashboard with 25 things on it, the salesperson is going to ignore all of them except the ones they think are important to them today. And feedback ends up being the same way. If you try to fix all the things, it's not going to work. And I also think there needs to be as much skill building around things someone is good at as there is around weaknesses, right? So if something's missing, does that salesperson already have a skill set that we can use and leverage for them to be successful at closing? Oh, you're not very good about getting next steps, but you're great at asking questions. What if we ask the prospect, based on everything we've talked about, what do you feel is the logical next step for us to take? Okay, that's closing in a question form. So can we leverage their ability to ask questions to close more deals and to close more next appointments or next steps, right? So not only work on what you're trying to improve, but also try to look for the things that somebody already does that's going to get you the result that you're looking for.
I must say that's where AI so far falls down for me, because how can I phrase this in the right way? I believe in the value of sales methodologies, things like MedPick, Medic, Spin, Challenger. Fundamentally, I believe in what they're trying to say, but I'm also a firm believer in human psychology and the way buyers think and feel, and also a seller's superpower. Because I think you make such a valid point there, and I've not heard that before. We're so fixated on managing their weaknesses, but actually, let's pivot to the psychology of what they're really good at, and then maybe try it in a different way. But what I'm finding is if you train your AI on MedPick and they don't do it in the exact formulaic way that it's been trained, it's going to give bad feedback. But actually, that person is doing it to their superpower as well.
And you can, again, okay, you're not doing MedPick. Where are they falling down? What does that part of the call sound like? So as the leader, you need to go figure out what does it sound like. And you also then can ask AI, are they, if they're missing this, the next prompt is the salesperson getting this result without using the methodology, and see what it comes back with. Like, okay, go rerun this, but are they getting this result that we're looking for as an organization in calls without using that methodology?
So true. So let's have a think then. We've talked a lot about vision and coaching. What else do you think is so vital for a sales leader to manage their team and be the best leader that they can be? Vision, coaching, it has to be foundational. What else is missing there, Lynn, from your book, perhaps?
So I'm going to say that from a foundational perspective, I want people to rethink their calendar. And the reason I want you to rethink your calendar is because I see, and when I was a sales leader, remember this distinctly, you end up adding things to do. Most sales leaders forget that they also have the ability to stop doing things. So I'm going to give you my personal example, which is I just was crazy, insane. And every Monday I would come in and I would run this report because sometimes somebody asked me for it, and I would run that report and I would pull this data and I would give the team all of this resource. So one day I just stopped. I was like, forget it. So I did none of it. Like zero, I sent zero reports, zero information out to my team. And by like 10:30, somebody came in my office and was like, hey, I didn't get that thing. And I'm like, oh, how do you use that? How often do you use that? All of a sudden, what I was learning was that there were things that I was sending out that people really counted on getting. There were other things that it took days for anyone to even ask me about. And there were things that no one ever asked me about, hard stop, right? So what I started to learn was that there were things I had started doing as habit for me because somebody sometime had thought it was important for their development, right? Like a salesperson wanted it. Well, okay, maybe that's the only salesperson that used it. There was another report that I found my team was religiously using once a month. I was running it every Monday. I don't need to run it every Monday. If like, okay, well, are you all using it the same time every, like, is it a end of month thing? Is it a beginning of the month thing? Or was it sporadic? So I needed to run it on Mondays because everybody used it differently, right? Like I could learn that by not doing, but I freed up 2 hours a week by just stopping doing everything for a week until somebody asked me for it.
It's incredible, isn't it? How we think it's valuable. One thing I'm going to implement, and I haven't done it yet, and I'll let all the listeners know and yourself know how it goes, is asking my team for feedback. Because I think as leaders, to your point, like you get yourself into a rhythm, you have a flow, you think it's valuable, but you're not actually sure. You know, it's the same with coaching. We can sometimes I fear, am I throwing too much at them? You know, different frameworks, methodologies, things that they can think about. Is it too overwhelming? Or actually, the feedback could be, no, I love it. It's really helpful. So one of the things I will do, my team are fairly new. I've got quite a new team that are ramping right now. They've probably been with the business 7 weeks, coming up to 2 months. I'm about to go on holiday, get married, so lots going on. But I'm thinking when I come back, that could be a really good thing to do. Survey your team. And don't be afraid to do that as a sales leader. We talked at the beginning of this episode about giving feedback to our team. We should also be comfortable receiving feedback from our team. And sometimes that may be really difficult. But to Lynn's point, you might save some time. You can find out, are you actually adding value in the right place? And ultimately, that's going to create a high-performing team, which is what we all want.
And it also, you might find that there's a theme through the feedback you get, even though it sounds completely differently based on what the person needs as well. And, you know, that is maybe the hardest part, I think, of being a sales leader is you are leading people. Well, they're all different. Right? And if you're Lauren and you're looking for everybody to be different, right? That's the superpower of the team and the difficulty in leading them. Because you also need to really understand the why behind them being part of the team. And I think too often, you know, we take the surface level answer. And, you know, my example is always, oh, well, you know, I want to hit President's Club. Okay, why?
Same.
The why behind that is usually wildly different.
So true. And someone asked me, also told me the other day, if, digging into the motivations of your team is really important. But if someone says, I'm motivated by money, why? Are you motivated in that area because you're saving for a wedding? Then let's get you to that. You
Or
start,
are you going to Italy?
or
Let's get you to that.
let's get you
Or
to that. Yeah.
whatever it is. And I tell people, and when I coach people, I'm like, okay, this isn't going to be annoying. Just let go of that feeling. But the question always is, and what does that get you? And a lot of times I have to ask 5 or 6 times, okay, and what does that get you? And what does that get you? And what does that get you? And people are like, stop asking me. I'm like, well, then tell me one more time. What does that get you? And eventually the answer doesn't change. They're like, no, that's really it. And then you're there. But then you're not coaching. When you're coaching them to their why.
The power of questions and repetition is huge. There was a book I read, and I'm forgetting the name of it now. And it asks, in sales leadership, if someone comes to you and has a challenge and they explain the context of the situation, you say, so Lynn, what is the real challenge here for you? You might say, well, I'm struggling with that department. And what else? And what else?
No.
Similar to you. And what else? And then by the end of
Yep.
it, they've gone, you say, and what do you think you should do about it? I think I need to speak to that individual. Right. Let's go. So it becomes less of a venting and it becomes more of they come to the answer themselves as well. It's a real art, I must say. I was talking to my team about coaching and mentoring though, because I would say I'm a good mentor, but I need to be a better coach. I need to learn to be comfortable with the silence and the questions. I can be a good director. Why don't you try this? Or why don't you do this? But actually what you're saying, I think sometimes as leaders, we're in the chaos all the time. To your point, the diaries are so full. It sometimes is taking a step back, taking a breath of air, and going, what am I doing well at the moment? What do I need to focus on? Or even, what is my vision? Am I instilling that vision with my team? And do I feel that they're driving towards the same goal as I am?
And the thing that I will say about your team knowing that is sometimes if I don't understand your vision, you are telling me something that you believe is like, oh, well, everyone's going to get this because this is helping us get to where we want to go. But if they don't know where you want to go, then it feels very shotgun approach, right? So if I know why you're sharing all the different methodologies and I'm with you on the place we're going together, then those are just tools to get me there. Otherwise, it feels like, oh, I thought we were supposed to do spin. Oh, wait, no, we're supposed to do motor. Oh, no, we're supposed to do, right? Like, and there's no flow to my day. And all of a sudden, your team feels like they have whiplash because every time they think they're getting momentum, the direction feels like it changes because they don't know where you're going.
So true. Try not to move too fast. Get the bigger picture first. And I've been guilty of that in my old team. I think there was just too much thrown at them. I mean, we were managing a lot. We were actually managing clients and net new growth and agency partnerships. We were doing everything. And it just felt chaotic. Whereas now as a business, we've all aligned and we have clear swim lanes and everybody feels like they know exactly what their focus and their area is. But before that, it was really hard. So yeah, I think protect your team with that. In the book, Lynn, you talk about something called the Bell Curve Manifesto, which challenges a belief that a lot of leaders hold. I'm dying to hear and unpack what you mean by that.
So everyone is not your next rock star. But that doesn't mean they're not a valuable member of your team. And so the reason I call it a manifesto is I'm pretty passionate about this. So if you look at a bell curve, right, the top 2% are your highest rock star performers. They demand your attention when they want it. The bottom 2% HR has you filling out PIPs and documenting an exit strategy and so all of a sudden, 4% of your team is taking up almost all of your time. But here's the crazy thing. In a bell curve, there's the big hump in the middle. Now, I started by saying not everyone is your next rock star. But what if we move the whole bell curve up? So what the baseline for performance is no longer 0. It's higher. Those people that are kind of in a math world on the left, the right side of the bell curve, they're making goal maybe not all the time, but consistently enough for you. You're leaving them alone because they're good enough. The people on the other side of the bell curve, that 34% on the left-hand side, if I talk to those people on your team, they're going to tell me they like flying under the radar. They don't even want to be the next rock star. They want to be successful, but not that successful, right? Because in sales, there's no success without a stage and a spotlight, right? So you cannot fly under the radar and be that person. So, and ultimately it's just math. So you're never going to change that it's 2%. But you can raise the entire performance of the team by spending more time and attention helping those people, knowing their why, moving them up. So everyone on the team moves up. My question is always the same, which is, what if everybody on your team made goal one more quarter? What would that look like?
It's so impactful, isn't it? And I guess it goes back to what you were saying about managing diaries and managing your energy and, bringing the team up together, not focusing too much in one direction, I suppose.
And again, your high performers are going to make sure you give them the attention that they need. But I would also wonder, at least when I look at teams, how much growth are you going to see there? Like, do they even have the capacity to be a third better?
Absolutely. And again, we've talked about visions and the way that how you coach, and so many different, I think you're right, there's so many different skill levels, superpowers we talked about. Not everybody is the same, and you can't have this high-performing sales team all the time, but you can keep pushing them forward. And there was one other thing that I wanted to pick your brains on before we go to quickfire round, which brings me to your diagnostic framework. And I wonder if that's what's been your superpower, Lynn, through your career, where you've helped use this to coach and train teams. So from what I understand, but again, you can talk through it, it's can't, won't, don't know how. Can you explain that?
Yep. So I think sales is way too difficult to make it complicated. I'm going to credit Dr. Hannah Rudstrom at Cornell University. She's the one that came up with that model. I latched onto it and I'm like, can I use this forever? And she said, yes, thank goodness. So can't means one of two things. That if it's your whole team not doing something, there's an organizational problem. There's something blocking them organizationally from doing what you need. If it's one person on your team, it's them. Maybe it's a bad fit. And again, I'm not telling you to fire them outright because we talked about different people get to the same result differently. But if they're not doing something that's fundamental to your business, you need to do a little more diagnostic about that person. Like, can they be successful anyway? Right? As a leader, I believe your job is to get rid of the organizational roadblocks. You need to advocate and fight for your team, right? That is your job. Won't is they know how to do it. They are capable of doing it, and they're not. So that is more about coaching. Like that's where coaching lives, right? That is a motivation, that is a fear, that is a something going on with that human that is stopping them from doing that. We could have a whole conversation about coachability being one of the top things I would tell people to hire for in sales, along with curiosity. We could go on for an hour about that alone. But too often, I think organizations throw training at a problem, but the only thing training fixes is a skill gap, is a don't know how. So until you diagnose what's going on, you're never going to know. And my example of a can't, organizational can't, is, okay, sales team of 25 people diagnosed that they were losing because of the time it took from discovery call to getting a proposal to the client. They were literally, people were making decisions and buying before they even got their proposals out. Well, it turns out they had 2 pre-sale engineers. Okay, bottleneck. And the pre-sale engineers had to touch every proposal. They were doing like the design work. Well, there were some people with great tenure, like the tenure of your previous team, where they could do the design work themselves on easy stuff, and they knew when they couldn't, right? So they changed the structure. Those people were allowed to do their own proposals unless they felt like they couldn't. There was another group of people who was close, but not quite to that point. They did their own proposals, and then all engineering did was validate, which takes, as you know, way less time than creating something. So engineering could like bang through those and get them out pretty quickly. And ultimately, they did need to hire a 3rd pre-sale engineer. But like, those are 3 different ways that they started to overcome that organizational can't to help the team fix that problem of time between discovery call and proposal delivery.
You know what, Lynn? The biggest thing I've taken away from this conversation is like slow down. Diagnosis.
Slow down to speed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Slow down to speed up. Diagnosis takes a chance to step back, to look at the bigger picture. And I've had that before. I have undiagnosed ADHD, but I can very much run in one direction, sort of forget all the other directions that I need to be paying attention to. And I've got a really good feedback loop with my management where they'll say, I knew that you'd identified the problem and I knew you were solving it. But what you didn't do is then manage to other people that you were solving it, and you diagnosed it and you were trying to action on it. So I would say to sales leaders, because I definitely do it, where we're just juggling so many things, carve out time in your diary. I'm very lucky that we have a 4-day work week at my company. And so Fridays for me are very much like looking at the bigger picture. I do my side hustle. I record podcasts today, but actually don't get into the weeds of the day-to-day to be able to diagnose what's going on, what do I need to do to improve, what's working and what's not working. So that's my biggest takeaway. There's a lot here. I'm going to jump into the quick fire. And the first one I think is a perfect way to sort of round up where this is so focused on sales leadership. What do you think is the one trait, just the one, that you think is most critical for a sales leader today?
Listening.
Yeah. Kind of goes back to what you said about coaching, doesn't it? Because that's asking questions to then let them uncover the result. Not easy. We're used to talking.
And solving.
And solving. What about for you? You've had an amazing career. Is there anyone that you've looked up to throughout your career that's really inspired you? Maybe a female sales leader, a mentor that you might have had?
So I have 2. So I worked for this amazing woman, Lisa Ross, who I have never seen someone put a deal together better. Like, she just had an amazing way of like figuring out all of the pieces that went together to make a good proposal based on a discovery call, and was fabulous at asking me that like 2 more questions. Like, well, what did they say about this? And was militant that if I didn't know the answer, it was my job to go call them back. And I got very comfortable calling people back and saying, hey, Lauren, I completely forgot to ask you this, and it just came up. Like, help, and being comfortable it was okay that I forgot, and it was okay that I called them back. And I would say from a sales expert perspective, read anything Jill Conrath wrote.
Yes. Yeah, very good. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's my last question. You've said Jill Conrath. We've talked about Atomic Habits as well. Any other books or resources that you think for sales leadership, other than yours, of course, Lynn, and we will plug your book, but outside of that?
So Colleen Stanley wrote a book about EI, emotional intelligence for sales leaders specifically. And it is an amazing resource, and every sales leader should own it.
Emotional intelligence is another one to go through on a podcast, and we'd sit for hours talking about it because it is vital.
We need to bring Colleen. We need to bring Colleen on.
Let's do that. Connections, please. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for dedicating your time. You've been so lovely to me as well, offering me support on the side, and you're a great inspiration to women in our profession, because I will say it's hard, but I will say it's the best. We're on this podcast because we love sales and we love the learning, right, Lynn? So very grateful to you. And let's absolutely keep in touch, and we'll put Lynn's profile in the notes as well.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Bye.